federal government says they're not primarily responsible for housing. What? This makes no sense to me. Well, welcome to DeLaat's Thoughts, and today I just wanted to touch on this little thing I heard. Mr. Trudeau was in Hamilton a little while ago and was talking about housing, and Mr. Trudeau said, well, it's primarily not the federal government's responsibility. And he was pushing it on the provinces. Well, to me, in all honesty, guys, that sounds like pushing blame to other avenues, and it seems absolute insane to me that the federal government is not responsible for housing. All right, and again, we look at numerous different factors, but let's talk about immigration. Who is leading and spearheading immigration in Canada? The federal government. Therefore, creating demand for homes. All right? So if the federal government wants to let in a whole bunch of immigrants, that's fine. But I think they also should be responsible for creating housing for every Canadian, not just the provinces. Our governments need to work together to help us through this housing crisis, okay? So for the federal government and Justin Trudeau to say that they're primarily not responsible, absolutely wrong. Not only that, the federal government owns tons of Crown land. They could offer some of this land for affordable housing, different initiatives. So again, absolute insane for Mr. Trudeau to state that the federal government is not responsible. Given the ongoing housing crisis, I feel is very pertinent for them to be responsible. And if we remind ourselves of the last election, okay, where Mr. Trudeau was elected, well, the Conservative Party's huge initiative for their votes and everything like that was actual housing. So therefore, back then, the opposing parties looked at housing as a federal issue, okay? So I think, again, Mr. Trudeau put his foot in his mouth. There's no way he can say that the federal government isn't responsible for housing. It is their job, again, to work with all forms of government, the provinces, the municipalities, all right? But what they really, really need to do is start working together to create affordable housing. So if the federal government is allocating significant funds and initiatives for Canadian housing, as well as a substantial budget to create new homes, I think that does count for direct involvement in the Canadian housing market. So I think Mr. Trudeau was speaking a little bit out of terms, but he does have a precarious situation as far as raising interest rates, countering this inflation, making housing a little unaffordable. Not only that, massive amounts of immigrants coming to our country, creating new demand for homes where we already do not have enough supply, as well as barriers for builders, not building fast enough, and again, interest rates affecting them. So I suggest that Mr. Trudeau starts working pretty quickly and puts a plan together, because I remind him an election year is coming up in 2025, and it's going to put him behind the 8 ball if he does not come to the table with some significant plans to improve affordability and housing development.